I'm really proud. It's the proudest thing I've had in my career. Yeah, I'm sure. I feel like it's very appropriate for God's Own Country, and as you say, yeah, it'll be far less intrusive on the film, a lot sort of drier and less windy, I imagine. But yeah, it's kind of appropriate. Uh, Terror and fear, like like every actor in the world. It's sort of the first time I watched it was in a cinema uh, in the offices of the BFI, and myself and Alec Sekarenu, who plays Georgi, sat on our own in this tiny cinema, and yeah, all I could do was look at my face and my forehead and stuff like that. Uh, so I didn't enjoy it first time. The second time I watched it was at Sundance, and I fell in love with it and fell in love with those characters again, and so it was a real treat. Yeah, we never expected it to, or I certainly never expected it to have such an impact on people, an ongoing impact on people. You know, it was never like we made this film, the 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 four of us, I say, including Josh Richards, the DP, the four of us were kind of. It felt like a really important story to us, but by the time we wrapped, that was it for me. It was like that was a really important chapter in my life, and then the fact that it's kind of had such importance for other people is kind of kind of crazy to me, and that however many years, 2 years on from its release, I'm here and people are still interested is incredible. The script kind of came to me at a time where I was um, yeah, a lot younger, and sort of like wide-eyed, and I felt at the time I felt like I wanted to do something that was very much out of my comfort zone, and that was removed from myself. At the time, I think I just made a couple of TV things, uh, two or three films, but in every film, it was, as is often the way, you're cast in roles that are kind of close to yourself, and this was a role that felt very removed from anything I knew, and yet I felt such affinity with Johnny, and so that was the first thing, and then it remains the single most beautiful script I've ever read. You could read. I'd love people to read that script, because I think if you read it, it's as gripping and as emotional as the picture. Strongest fan reaction. I mean, the thing that's always sort of this is a kind of a more general fan reaction, but the thing that always surprises me is how disappointed people are that I'm not from Yorkshire. Um, and always sort of like a little bit disappointed to find out that I'm from Cheltenham Spa. um, yeah, they look kind of confused, and so that always amazes me. Um, yeah, I guess yeah, it's sort of a good tick to me. Yeah. Francis has an incredible understanding for what actors need, and for the insecurities that actors have, and for keeping actors focused. But yeah, I guess the biggest thing that I learned from Francis, from working with him, and from doing this film uh, was time spent on character, which you don't. It feels like a dying art in the film, or maybe in television, film, and everything. We spent months and months coming up with a narrative that has nothing to do with the film. That's from the day Johnny Saxby's born, right up until the first day of the film that we're seeing tonight. It's and that time, I think, is invaluable. So I'd like to try. I like to think that I've learned from that and continue to give that time. To pinpoint what it is that struck with people, it's I think it's the hope in the film that the release of the film coincided with a time, and still coincides with a time, where there is very little, I believe, very little hope in our society, and so for a film to show that, especially a queer love story to show any kind of hope, um, seems crazy, but yeah, it was a rare thing in cinema. So maybe that's what struck people. We showed our film at Sundance. Our first festival was Sundance, and we showed it the night after. I think the night after Call Me by Your Name, and we all went to go and see Call Me by Your Name, and it was spellbinding. It was a beautiful movie, beautiful performances, and yet it didn't. It never felt like. It never felt like these are. They felt so individual in their story and so individual in the message they were giving. Um, yeah, so I'm really proud. It's the proudest thing I've had in my career is making this film and being part of that selection of films that year. Yeah, it's been another kind of roller coaster year, and Olivia's obviously incredible. She's amazing, and the whole cast are incredible. Tobias and Helena Bonham Carter, Ben Daniels, Jason Watkins, Marion Bailey. It's like it's endless, and every day you come in and you're like, oh, there's Charles Dance, there's what such and such, whatever. It's always really, it's like Premier League um, television. I love it every day going to work. So I'm really excited for people to see season 3. Um, yeah, so it's very different to God's Own Country for sure. There are a few kind of like moments that I think had big impacts on me. One was Brassed Off, seeing Pete Postlethwaite. I think just seeing Pete Postlethwaite. I don't even know if it was Brassed Off that I saw where I first saw him, but seeing Pete Postlethwaite was a really big moment for me because he was someone on screen that didn't look, I guess, looked like someone who I might know. He looked kind of normal to me. Didn't look like Leonardo DiCaprio, or or Brad Pitt, or anyone really in kind of mainstream cinema. He looked like someone in my family, or um, so it's like specific performances, and also My Beautiful Laundrette I remember seeing, and Daniel Day-Lewis, and that was kind of like spectacular. So yeah, I guess those are two performances that were particularly interesting to me. They can expect to be kind of taken on a really truthful, authentic love story um, that has chinks of hope, and I think that feels very relevant to now. It's a story that we surprisingly don't get to see very often. And if you're seeking out something that will make you cry and smile and get really angry at the leading role from time to time, then this is a film for you. Yeah.